Good morning, everyone. So I'm a sound artist, an acoustic ecologist, and a researcher. And as you were arriving this morning, you would have heard some slightly peculiar sounds. And they were recordings from marine and freshwater environments across the world. And that also included a live stream from humpback whales in Hawaii. So my work revolves around... Do I have my slides? Yes. My work revolves around conservation and environmental engagement, and I'm really interested and passionate in the role that arts can play in really shifting the narrative of climate change, to really inspire people to take action. And in our visually dominant society, listening to the state of the environment, I don't seem to have my clicker working, oh there we go, can connect and inspire us at a profound sensory level. Our soundscape can really reveal so much about our surrounding environment. So the majority of my work revolves around this idea. I develop large-scale interdisciplinary projects for climate action that are really designed to reconnect people to the environment through the art and science of sound. And I've been recording different environments across the world over the last decade. And most of my creative projects always revolve around water, inspiring people to connect to water. So I use hydrophones, which are underwater microphones, and I use these to record the sounds beneath the surface of rivers, lakes, and different marine ecosystems. And it was hydrophones, these devices, that first really inspired and triggered my interest in the scientific possibilities of sound. So I was working with different river systems, and I was constantly fascinated by the sounds beneath the surface, from remote rivers in Queensland, such as the Mary River here, to waterways throughout South India, and rivers that flow through urban environments. These were all filled with sound. Many sounds that I couldn't exactly identify at the time, but I knew that these soundscapes were revealing information about the health of these environments. So if we look at the surface of a freshwater or a marine ecosystem, it's virtually impossible to detect environmental changes. The impacts of climate change are often very visible in terrestrial environments. We can see changes in the trees, we can hear less birds in the environment. But changes in aquatic ecosystems can go unnoticed for long periods of time simply due to visibility. And the scientists that I collaborate with also believe that some of our current techniques, such as electrofishing or capture and release, don't really provide this accurate information about the health of the environment. So freshwater ecologist Dr. Simon Linke, who's one of my main collaborators, also believes that these are incredibly invasive techniques. But many of the species that we're monitoring make very distinctive sounds. This will be the sound of a black drumfish. And this is the sound of a spangled perch. This is the sound of a catfish in the Brisbane River in Australia. And aquatic insects also make an incredible diversity of sound in freshwater ecosystems. So we can monitor these different species with hydrophones. And listening underwater provides access to this very non-invasive way of understanding these aquatic ecosystems. And while marine bioacoustics is a very developed field, particularly through monitoring whales and dolphins, there's really only a handful of scientists in the world at the moment that are specialising in freshwater bioacoustics. And the exciting thing about listening underwater is we're constantly making new discoveries. Now, it's hard to escape the sound of snapping shrimp in freshwater and marine environments for the divers out there. I'm sure many of you have been fascinated by this sound. And just last week, a new research was published on a discovery in the Pacific Ocean, which has actually been named after Pink Floyd, if you couldn't guess by that fantastic name there. And these shrimp can reach 210 decibels, making them one of the loudest creatures in the sea. You can hear them playing underneath now, and some people often associate this with the sound of a crackling fire. Now, the other really exciting thing about this technology is it's becoming increasingly accessible and affordable. These hydrophones are incredibly easy to use, and at a new location, I can have these devices in the water in less than 5 minutes, and I can also teach someone how to use them in less than 5 minutes. So this means that we can put these devices in the hands of young people, in the hands of community groups, schools, and local stakeholders, and the resulting recordings are being used by emerging and established scientists in different parts of the world. So this idea of listening underwater can be an extremely exciting way to explore waterways in the context of ecotourism and education programs as well. These are some participants in one of our Biosphere Soundscapes residencies in the Sian Khan Biosphere Reserve in Mexico. So in the process of expanding this research, I launched a project called River Listening, which brings together communities, artists, and scientists to explore global river systems through sound. So we map the cultural and biological diversity of river systems, so it combines these hydrophone recordings with the social and cultural context of the river system. This project has worked in a diversity of locations, from frozen rivers in Norway to regional waterways in Australia. And the project is really responsive and adaptable to different communities and environments. One of the outcomes has been building these databases and sound maps which allow us to collect and map these recordings across the world and listen and compare to different ecosystems. So you can zoom in and explore these different sonic perspectives in river systems. And our accessibility will increase even further when we launch a new app which allows you to plug a hydrophone directly into your phone and display real-time spectrograms. So these visual spectrograms offer us a really exciting and useful way to understand long durational recordings, such as 24 hours of continuous sound. Spectrograms also allow us to identify different species and compare differences in these long durational recordings, such as these two examples at exactly the same location, and the only difference is night and day. So we're collaborating with a fantastic scientist in Australia. I'll just get that next slide up. Michael Towsey, who has developed a false colour spectrogram technique that allows us to very easily identify these changes in long durational recordings. And this image you can see along the bottom shows 44 days of ocean recordings off the coast of Georgia. And these are calving grounds for North Atlantic right whales. And those little red bumps you can hear are ships passing by, which can be heard for up to 2 hours in these hydrophones. So this technique allows us to explore the impact of marine noise pollution, which is now recognised as a major issue in ocean health. So the creative outcomes from this research that include installations and performances really remain to be our core technique in engagement and awareness. At the World Parks Congress in 2014, I was presenting some of this research, and I was intrigued that many of the presentations, I'll just get my next slide, suggested that in order to really connect young people to the environment, we needed to disconnect them from technology. But I've instead focused around this idea of repurposing technology as a tool for environmental reconnection as opposed to disconnection. So we've developed a range of augmented reality sound walks for river listening, and these can be experienced by walking with a mobile device and triggering soundscapes with GPS, so invisible bubbles of sound floating in the air. And these augmented reality walks are designed to transform a mobile phone into a sonic compass that guides you towards the river. So these sound walks also include live hydrophones, as you were hearing at the start of this presentation today, listening to these aquatic ecosystems in real time, and they connect to the local sounds of the river and allow communities to really compare freshwater, biodiversity, and cultural and social perspectives on the river. So these are experienced simply with GPS and a mobile phone. And the exciting thing is we can bring these experiences directly to decision makers in the context of climate change events. So this is the Queensland Science Minister listening to the sounds of the Great Barrier Reef and the Brisbane River at World Science Festival last week. The Mayor of Austin, Texas, listening to the difference between the Colorado River and the Amazon River in central Brazil, and some of our collaborators at the UN Foundation listening during South by Southwest. Now, during COP21 in Paris, we created a global sound map along the Seine, which also included the voices of water protectors, activists, and Indigenous communities across the world. So we mixed these scientific recordings with global perspectives on water to really highlight the cultural importance of protecting waterways as well. So to recap, listening underwater really, and recording these freshwater and marine environments offers us these dynamic and non-invasive environmental monitoring techniques that really allows us to learn about environmental change in new ways. Our auditory perception offers us more information about our surrounding environment than any of our other senses. And remote listening through these creative experiences and new technologies really inspires us to connect to the environment in new ways. The latest example of this is Sonic Reef, which launched at the World Science Festival. And this is a call to action to protect the Great Barrier Reef. So we're using sound to monitor environmental change and to understand the health of the reef and connect and inspire people to this environment. And finally, to close, I've brought these sounds, let's get that next slide, to us here at Earth Optimism. So you can download the free app Echoes, and your phone will act as a sonic compass to listen to a piece called Hydrology. So you can listen to all the sounds I've spoken about today, from the Great Barrier Reef to remote rivers in India. And this will be live throughout the conference. The sounds are planted throughout this building and along the mall all the way to the Smithsonian. So to close, I'm optimistic about the future, and I believe that a global movement is building where we can connect creativity, science, and technology to really mobilize global communities and connect and collaborate in responding to the greatest challenges of our time. Thank you.